Hello, this is Phoenix with Phoenix Core Healing. This video is about how to talk to a narcissist, part 1. And when I speak about talking to a narcissist, I am really meaning managing a conversation, because a narcissist doesn't really want to have a normal conversation. They're not interested in finding a solution to a problem, because that would not give them any fuel. So the first thing you need to know is that in any conversation with a narcissist, all the narcissist wants is fuel in form of an emotional reaction from you. And it really doesn't matter whether that is admiration, love, disgust, jealousy, or anger. So you need to know that. The topic of the conversation that you're having, no matter what it is, it's never about that. It's never about it. Whatever the narcissist is speaking about is only there to provoke you into emotional reactions. So, really, now that you know that, this is more about conversations that you have to have. And this might be a family member who is narcissistic and with whom you have chosen to still have occasional contact, or maybe an ex-partner of you with whom you have children and there needs to be some communication because you need to organize the life of the children. So knowing that there is no way to have a normal conversation with the narcissist, what is it then really about? And what it really is about when you have a conversation that you can't avoid or you don't want to avoid is for you to stay safe. And that means that you will not get hurt emotionally by the narcissist, which they are so good at doing. And so to have that kind of conversation, we need to make sure that certain things don't happen. For example, raising their voice or yelling at you. That is really damaging. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. The other thing is name calling. We need to make sure name calling isn't happening, because that also hurts you. And the other thing we need to make sure is not happening is that the blame always ends up on you. Now, there are two different ways to avoid that. One of them is by setting very clear boundaries. And that means letting the narcissist know that from now on, raising their voice, and that includes yelling, of course, is not acceptable anymore, and that if that happens, you will leave or hang up the phone, depending on where you are. And the same for if they start blaming you or if they start name calling. And you can also decide which other behaviors of theirs are hurting you and which you will not allow anymore. Now, when you establish or face the narcissist with boundaries, they're not very likely to accept them. In fact, whenever the narcissist is put into a boundary or put outside a boundary, that's when their rage will really surface. That is when the mask will fall. And so you have to be very careful with whom you're dealing with. Never make those boundaries clear when you are physically present with a narcissist. The other way of making sure that you don't get hurt is that you find excuses. If you don't feel comfortable yet to make those boundaries very clear, you can find excuses of why you have to leave. So if they're raising their voice and you're on the phone, you can say, "Oh, my child's calling, I need to go. I'll call you back later," and then hang up the phone. Or, "I need to go to the bathroom," or whatever other excuses make sense to you. Now, the problem is that if you start using excuses again and again and again, the narcissist is smart. They will pick up on it and they will confront you. They will point out what you're doing. And so that is the point at which you will have to be truthful anyhow. You will have to let them know about the boundaries sooner or later. So, finding excuses is really only a temporary measure. So what I suggest for you to define those boundaries is go on the internet and research what is abusive behavior. And it might actually be very surprising what you find. Very simple things that we never think of are considered abusive behavior. And make note of which of those behaviors that your narcissist portrays are the most harmful. Which ones hurt you in such a way that you cannot recover anymore. Those are the boundaries you will have to put in place sooner or later. And here is another little aspect. Oftentimes we feel that we have to explain why we're putting up boundaries or why a no is a no. And here's the important thing. You have the right to say, this is not okay with me, without explaining why. And this is really new for some of us, because we feel that we have to justify it, or that we have to make the other person understand why this no is a no. Now, assertiveness is the ability to state very clearly where your boundaries are, what you want and what you don't want, without having to explain why that is so. So let's say you're facing a narcissist at some point and you're letting them know, from now on, raising your voice with me, name calling and blaming me is not acceptable anymore. If you do that, I will hang up the phone and I will call back another time. And the narcissist will ask you, why? You can say, because that's what I have decided. Well, why can't I? Because that doesn't feel right to me anymore. Well, why does it not feel right to you anymore? It just does. It just doesn't feel right. It's not acceptable anymore. End of story. You don't have to explain. If they keep asking, you can say, those are the rules. If you keep asking, I will hang up. There's another boundary right there. So you can put up boundaries. And yes, when you do that for the first time, expect a big kerfuffle. There will be a rage. So hang up the phone. Don't do it in person if you can. And expect there to be some silence and some distance for a while. But here's the thing. If you have something that the narcissist wants, your attention, your company, or maybe a connection with your children, then you can shape them. You have to insist on the boundaries though, because they will test them from time to time. And if you give in once, if you allow them to step over that boundary once, the next time when you re-insist on the boundaries, they will try harder to break it. So you have to be really clear that once you put those boundaries in place, you're going to be very vigilant. And every time they overstep them, that you go through with your threat of hanging up the phone, of leaving the place, whatever it is that you have established. So this is step one. Become really clear of which behaviors are the most hurtful to you, that you will not accept, that you need to stop for them in order to feel safe and to be able to continue some kind of relationship. And trust that sooner or later, if there's something they want from you, they will be trained. If that's the only way that they can have a talk with you on the phone or see you in person, and every time they overstep the boundary, you leave and take their fuel away, they will be shaped. They will follow the rules. And if they don't follow the rules, or if they just move away from you because there's nothing that they want from you, then that's it. That's the end of the relationship between you and the narcissist. And it might be for the better.